What I'm about to share with you should really rock you if you're a true Christian, and make sure you share this with other Christians you know as well. A couple of days ago, I was able to catch a couple of minutes of a broadcast by the Answers in Genesis ministry, and they basically were sharing an article in the description box of their video talking about what the government had ultimately been caught doing recently. Now, what I'm going to show you next is just details from a 600-page report which basically details how the US government have actually been paying for babies up to the price of $12,000. So as you can see here, this is the article, and it basically just talks about how a new 600-page report was released about a week ago, revealing how the US government had been buying and trafficking fresh body parts from aborted babies. And the thing that's actually quite significant in the article is this. As you can see here, it talks about how there's emails going back and forth talking about how they were willing to pay up to $12,000 per baby according to reports. And it talks about how some of these babies they were basically purchasing were as late in the pregnancy journey as over 20 weeks. And just look at this, for example. So this is a baby who's in the womb at 21 weeks of life, and you can see the baby has eyes, the baby has a mouth, fingers. At this particular point in pregnancy, you're going to feel the baby moving much more regularly, right? The question becomes, what is moving around with eyes, fingers, and a mouth? And this is something I wanted to show you, and this is a story from a couple of years ago about a baby who was basically prematurely born at 21 weeks. These are the kind of babies, right? The extremities, at least according to this article, this 600-page report, of the $12,000 fee that was ultimately being purchased for a baby like this. And the reason I'm showing you this particular example is because, yes, this baby was prematurely born at 21 weeks, but this baby survived. So what is the difference between this 21-week-old baby who was prematurely born and the 21-week-old baby who was ultimately in the womb of a mother and was ultimately aborted? And this is what it comes down to right here, right? The purchasing of organs of babies who are ultimately 20 weeks old and above. Now think about this from a Christian perspective. We see scriptures like 1 Timothy which talk about the love of money. When we can see now that the government are paying that kind of money for an aborted baby, now hopefully you can see as a Christian the conflict of interest which is clearly visible in these particular situations. If you know you can get $12,000 for a baby in this particular setting, when a female comes into your clinic, when a female comes into your offices, what are you going to tell them? Are you going to say to them, look, you know what, keep the baby and go about your life? Or are you going to say, look, pay for a procedure first and foremost, right, which is them getting money, and then also at the same time, we know we can ultimately sell this particular baby as well at some point in the future for up to $12,000. This is just another reason, but this showcases to you why we should not just listen to the mainstream ideas about different things like this, because it highlights that the deeper thing behind a lot of this stuff is money, number one, and power, number two. They're already going to make money from the procedure that they take these women through, let alone the money on the back end, which is even a bigger incentive as to why they would encourage females and promote widespread that women should freely come and take part in these particular procedures, right? It comes down to the money. Now look, the point of this video isn't to bash any woman or man who's been part of a procedure like this. At the end of the day, we're Christians. We know that God can forgive and is willing to forgive all sinners who basically come to him. The point of a video like this is for me to highlight to you the inconsistencies, the conflict of interest, and some things which most people don't consider when it comes to these kind of topics. Yes, it's all good and dandy promoting and publicizing, saying, look, you know what, women's rights, women's rights, women's rights. But how many procedures like this do you think they would ultimately get if, along with talking about women's rights, was the same headlines like this talking about the government was going to be ready and waiting after to give a company $12,000. Now, there's only so much I can express as a man in regards to this particular topic. But what I want to do is link below this video a movie I watched a couple of days ago, which I think will sum up this whole situation and showcase what's terribly wrong with this situation much better than I ever could.